Well, hi everybody, it's the Week in the Tackle podcast, the podcast where we get together on a weekly basis and tackle things from the world of football that we thought were interesting. I'm Tom Rennie of SiriusXM FC and TalkSport fame. Alongside me is MLS legend, top broadcaster. You know him from all the TV channels. Shame TV's a dead medium. It's Brian Dunny Dunseth. Hello, buddy. You all right?
I'm fantastic. As long as I don't end up on the socials in for misspeaking at some point. No, it's all good, man. Fun weekend. Me and Tio Max were covering LAFC against FC Dallas down at BMO Stadium. It was driven by celebrities, driven by some great goals, and ultimately another fantastic environment where my Apple Watch, my Apple Watch kept alerting me that it was too loud. On 7 different occasions, the sounds inside BMO Stadium from the fan base were so loud that my watch has let me know that eardrum safety is of the utmost concern. But yeah, great environment nonetheless. And now we're in a couple of weeks of Major League Soccer where we're starting to feel out who the good ones are and who the really, really bad ones are. And I think we're already on some manager watches for the start of 2025 or 2026 after just 3 matches played.
Are you saying I don't need to learn the name of the Columbus Crew manager because I haven't learned it yet?
I think he's probably in a better spot than maybe Phil Neville out in Portland, really? Who said the only man on the field was the 18-year-old I signed the day before. Or Oscar Pareja, whose Orlando City team is struggling. Note to goalkeepers, do not catch the ball and walk out of your own penalty area because that'll be a straight red card, especially less than 15 minutes into a game.
Don't do that, guys. I do have an MLS question for you today on the Lionel Messi Harlem Globetrotters tour, so I do want to get to MLS a bit later in the show. And also, I just got to start with a quick apology. We were supposed to do a second show last week. We're doing some bonus episodes. We were supposed to, and I'm so pissed. I am so pissed about it because we were meant to be doing a show after Tottenham lost against Crystal Palace. So we are going to do the Tottenham Palace chat today, or I'm going to try to. We'll see what we can remember. But unfortunately, I think
you're delicate.
Moment, I'm cursed.
You're delicate.
I'm cursed now. So I had my heart trouble. So I've got my scan tomorrow. So fingers crossed it's still there. So I've had that. So I had to take some days off work. I keep getting ill, like all the time. And I was doing the SiriusXM FC show Thursday morning. I felt fine at like 9 a.m. And I sat in my home studio, got to the microphone and was like, welcome to the show. And just went. So I couldn't do, so the show was, a fucking nightmare. Sorry, Tim. For Tim, who had to find a new presenter mid-show. And for poor Jack, who was hosting
you had to
alongside
leave.
me.
Well, you lost it.
I managed to get to the end, but mainly by saying, Jack, give me your thoughts on Fulham, and then just basically not talking for 10 minutes. Jack, we had like 10 guests. Anyway, so that was a nightmare. I'm burning sage right now out the back of the house because I don't believe in the evil spirits, but I'm one more illness away from buying fucking crystals.
That's amazing.
Okay? Sorry, Tim. That's where I am. So apologies for that. We are going to do a bit of Tottenham today. Before we get into that, I always forget this. Housekeeping. So, if you are watching this program on YouTube, we thank you for that. That means your algorithm is going to be better. If you're not watching this on YouTube, then you're with us on... you're doing the Queen wave.
Yeah, I was doing the Queen wave. Like, hey, everybody.
Does the King do that wave? I don't know.
He does.
Should look into it. Should see what he does. Anyway,
I was going to say, can't wait for your rant against the monarchy.
Yes, I would do. That's a whole other podcast, which maybe we'll do on Week in the Tackle After Dark. I don't know. But anyway, if you're listening as a podcast, we thank you for it. Subscribe on Apple if you're on Spotify, vice versa. If you're on Spotify, subscribe on Apple. Leave us a 5-star review. And look, we're a top 50 soccer podcast in America, which we're happy with. It's enough to buy us all a nice dinner when we get together. But I'd like to maybe buy breakfast too, or something like that. So we want more. So leave us a great review, but tell a friend. The best way to get this podcast, go on other people's podcasts, as I'm trying to do, and say, you know what's good? Week in the Tackle. So that's what we're looking for. Tell people about the program. If you see Dunny on an aeroplane, say how much you love that he does the program with.
Facts.
Sorry, Tim, which was the story from last week's show. And always approach Dunny, tell him you enjoy the program, and tell your friends. Anyway, there you go. Support Week in the Tackle. That's what we advise you to do. Right. Bit of FA Cup to start the programme. I know you didn't watch a great deal of it, Dunny, because you're busy. Plus, it's the FA Cup. It's not the last few rounds. Fine. But there's something I did want to ask you about. And in the FA Cup the weekend, the big hitters got through who were in it. Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City. They're all through. Fine, we expect that. Couple of other stories. Leeds are through. Great. They played a very strong team and beat Norwich. But two big upsets as we record the programme. One was Port Vale beating Sunderland, which they played a fairly strong team, Sunderland. They're kind of rotating things right now in order to get to the end of a season where they're nowhere near relegation. They're thinking about next season. And so a couple of changes, resting Xhaka back from injury is not a big story. I think Fulham is a big story, actually. So Fulham got knocked out against Southampton this weekend. Southampton, if you've not been following them, are now managed by someone who I'm sure is in the mafia, because this must be a fake name, Tonda Eckert. No way that's real. Absolutely no way. That's a name given by the FBI, so maybe he's wanted for crimes in Mississippi. I don't know, but there's no way that's a real person. I refuse to believe it. I literally learned his name live watching the game at the weekend because I didn't know it was. Southampton struggling in the Championship on their second manager this season. They go to Fulham, who got beat by West Ham last week. They're not in the Champions League qualification conversation. They're not in the Europa League conversation, and they're not in the Conference League qualification conversation. Maybe Conference League at a push, but that is a competition where, look, great to win it, but you don't make any money. So you don't reorganize your priorities to qualify for that competition. The reason I bring all this up is that Fulham, with almost nothing to play for this season, a team who I thought might be a dark horse for the FA Cup this year, do a bit of a Crystal Palace. I think at the Cottage, they can pretty much beat anyone on their day. Luck of the draw, maybe they get Port Vale in the next round. They go to a semi-final and maybe they get Leeds and suddenly you're in the FA Cup final. It's possible. The draw's not happened yet. They rested Alex Iwobi, who's their best player, Raul Jimenez, their best striker, Bernd Leno, who's their best goalkeeper, Sander Berge, who's their best midfielder, Calvin Bassey, who's their best centre-half, Anthony Robinson, who I know he's been injured, but I'd still say you'd put him into the strongest possible team. That's 5, that's 6, maybe 7 of their best players. They're resting them for the Premier League game coming up this weekend, where again, for me, their best hope is a Conference League qualification position of 8th, if other things fall in their favour. They lose the game. Not only do they lose the game, they're truly awful in this game. They can't build up a head of steam. There's no coherent pattern of play. They don't get the aggression or intensity up at any point, again, against a really poor Southampton, who have been decimated in the last 18 months for various reasons and are struggling in the Championship. They lose to a 91st minute penalty given away by Joachim Andersen with an awful tackle. It's a definite penalty. There's no great debate to be had, and they're out of the competition. They try and fix it. Jimenez comes on, and Josh King comes on, and Iwobi comes on, but they can't. And I just sort of thought, on this game, Dunny, but also in the wider context, why on earth did Marco Silva and why on earth did Fulham essentially not seem to care about getting through to the FA Cup quarterfinals? I couldn't understand it.
So there's a couple things at play for me, and we were talking about this on Counterattack over on SiriusXM earlier today. I would start with okay, so obviously I'm a Manchester United fan, and they've been out of the tournament since the very beginning, going back to the rainy night where Ruben Amorim was sitting there with his magnets in the rain, and he was trying to figure it out, and we were all having fun. Rest in peace. Independence Day.
Bring
Independence
him back.
Month.
Bring him back.
Shut your filthy little mouth, Rennie. God, I'm still so aggressive over this. But here's my problem. So I go into it as a neutral, right? And for context, FA Cup, the equivalent here in the United States is U.S. Open Cup. That jersey right over my shoulder is the one I've won the U.S. Open Cup. So like and then I've played in the Open Cup as one of the smaller teams. Then we went up to Portland Timbers with Hollywood United. We've knocked out the Portland Timbers back in whatever it was, 2007, 2008, 2009, somewhere in there. So I use this as like the weird teeter-totter effect of being the team that should win versus being the team that has no right to win. Here's what I'll say. There becomes a point during the season when you're dealing with multiple competitions that you are then trying to figure out how do you marginalize versus how do you play up.
Yeah.
If we were talking about Newcastle United and Manchester City, I would say the value of this tournament is based on the starting 11. Whereas Eddie Howe and Pep Guardiola are obviously valuing midweek at home against Barcelona and on the road midweek at Real Madrid. Totally understandable.
Yeah.
But then when we get to the nuance of a conversation about a team with a final run up that's dealing with concern about fatigue, that's dealing with concern about injury, with concern about dealing with form, that's when I think everyone's primed for an update or for an upset. And on top of that, fourth round, no VAR, fifth round, there's VAR. There's a complexity to the conversation. And even deeper, I'm of the belief that why don't we just keep FA Cup as uniquely FA Cup? Don't introduce VAR in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Let that be the outlier of a tournament, and then everybody gets involved. Whereas the Carabao Cup, Gummy Bear Cup, EFL Cup is all of those teams that did not qualify for Europe, but then make it staggered, right? Why don't we put a Europa League spot on the table for whoever wins EFL Cup and wins that trophy? They get a Europa League spot. Then what do we do for an FA Cup? Why don't we make that a Champions League qualifier? So whoever wins that then still has. So then we've got this escalating slide of the value of the tournament, because right now it's very, very clear. If you have Champions League football, you are not concerned about FA Cup. If you are concerned about safety and or a final push in the Premier League, you are not worried about FA Cup. And I would go European football, I guess Premier League versus European football, somewhere in there, depending upon success or failure recently.
Dunny is doing his hands. That's why you got to
Hands.
subscribe
Sorry,
on
my
YouTube.
hands.
So he's doing
hands.
like
I'm
a
doing my
Latin.
hands.
Yes.
Not the 6-7, but more of like the, is it
Don't
even?
do
Is it
that.
not even?
There's going to be a family now listening to this in the car, and you just ruined a dad's day, just so you know that.
My bad. God, finally it's gone. But is it? Anyways, and then, Gummy Bear,
now.
Carabao, Gummy Bear Cup, EFL Cup, it rates the bottom. So my problem in all of this is that it's so insanely clear, the valuation. And if they don't care, why should I care?
Yeah.
It's going to be looked at as opportunities for younger players and or subs that feel like they deserve to knock on the door and complain to their manager that I need to play. Here's my opportunity. Well, we didn't win and you didn't take your opportunity. It's a justifiable explanation or conversation afterwards. But in the real time, I'm just having a hard time at this stage with the FA Cup, with the interruption to the momentum of the Premier League and what's happening there, that all of a sudden, for those teams not participating, another 10 days off, no games in hand, and we're sitting back watching teams that obviously couldn't give a flying sorry, Tim, about what this tournament means based on the starting 11 that's rolled out.
Yeah, I think Man U have got 2 games in 40 or something like that they're
Yeah.
barely playing. I mean, again, this goes, and I agree with all that, by the way. I think that the carrot of a European qualification position from the Carabao Cup, I think is fantastic. You know that I agree completely already. I think you're copying some of my ideas. That we get rid of the European teams and have a Carabao Cup for the rest of us, a Festivus for the rest of us. I think that's exactly what we should be doing. Yeah, the Arsenal Man City Carabao Cup, I'll be there in 2 weeks, or unless I have another heart attack or something. But if I can get there, if I can live and not have a virus for 2 weeks, I'll be there, and it'll be great. If Arsenal win it, it'll be a great story, and it'll be Arteta's first of a quadruple. Man City win it, it'll be like, is that them turning the tide? There's a nice narrative there. I'd say it'll be a better narrative. Everton winning it, Leeds winning it, the Hammers winning it. These would be better stories.
Forest? Could you imagine if Forest won a trophy? Yeah.
All great. These are all, better stories, and it would mean a lot more to them. So I like the idea of it being, and also getting in the Europa League is actually quite hard, because you've got to be in the top 6, and now you're competing with the top 5 plus Newcastle and Villa. Very unlikely to get there. If you've got a competition you're in, the European teams aren't in it. Everyone takes it seriously. Europe at the end of it, perfection. I think that's an absolutely fantastic thing to do.
What about VAR?
Get the
You
Champions
digging
League
my
money.
VAR? No VAR for FA
No, I
Cup
like
at
that.
all.
You know what? I like that. I didn't want to jump in, but I liked it because the FA Cup, what does it sell itself on? It sells itself on tradition, right? We've been running since 1876 or whatever. So now it'd be like the Carabao Cup, do whatever. That's for the future. That's for the kids. But the FA Cup, it's the same today as it was in 1875. That's how you sell the FA Cup. We haven't changed anything.
Well,
you add that to my other brilliant idea, which I'm going to build onto your ideas, do the whole thing in one sitting, because it's been a good FA Cup. There's been some good stories, and having Port Vale and Southampton in the final 8, and Leeds, and one of Brentford or West Ham, and Wrexham last 16. There's good stories, obviously, with loads of good bits across it, the Mansfield bit and all that. Good stories. But I have sort of forgotten, because they weren't in together in one big chunk. Do 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th semis, and I would do final all in January. And everyone's like, oh no, but they get a big break. And my answer will be, look at Man United right now.
Yeah.
You're going to get a big break, but in a moment you don't want it, whereas you can build up
100%.
momentum in the league. Like, we're right on this, Dunny. It's annoying how right we are. I'm pissed at how right we are, and it's
Well,
not happening.
and also, if you don't have VAR, I mean, like, and again, because here's the reality: like, if VAR wasn't like, if Wrexham, Chelsea are in the fourth round instead of the fifth round, there's no VAR, so Dobson doesn't get sent off. The referee's not sent over to the monitor. The game time or potentially the game winning goal counts because he's not just judged offside, even though they did use feet, which made me extremely happy because that's the other thing that I'm keep trying to pitch: offside only judged by feet. But think about this. We want referees' instinctual decisions to be at its highest level. So if you put them in FA Cup without VAR, guess what? It's like a perfect primer to not be so relied upon to use the tech that it goes back and it sharpens. Iron sharpens iron in this situation. Plus, it doesn't change the parameters of the competition because I guarantee you, Wrexham's not the only team. Phil Parkinson's not the only team that's talking about, man, I got undone. By the way, the fact that that was his first game after like 1,000 games managed is wild. That it's the first time Phil Parkinson has ever had VAR in use.
Did you see his face after it was disallowed
so
when they
pissed.
cut to him? That was
so pissed.
It was perfect. It was perfect. It was a mix of anger plus the puff out plus the all of it. Amazing. The perfect face for someone who doesn't want to do this again. That's lower league management.
Yeah. Genius.
He knows how to butter the bread, and he's happy with it. On VAR, brief aside, did you see the story from Bundesliga 2 this week about the VAR? You see this?
No.
Oh my God, you'll love this, right? So it's a game in Bundesliga 2 between Hertha Berlin and Preußen Munster, who I've never heard of before.
Oh, Munster. Okay.
Amazing name, Munster.
Munster.
And it's in Cologne, second tier of the Bundesliga. So referee Felix Bickel is asked, because they've got VAR in the second tier, to go to the monitor to check a penalty. While that's happening, a masked spectator has walked up behind the VAR monitor and just pulls the leads out of the back. And so the referee is standing there looking at the screen, but because he's in like a vest or something, no one notices that it's not like a steward. And so the ref's there going, I can't see the screen. I can't see what's happening. Someone's pulled the plugs out the back. And in the end, the VAR elsewhere, wherever they are, Cologne or wherever, has to just tell him what to do because he can't check the monitor. And I loved it because, it makes me feel old because you're of the generation, you'll remember like the Nintendo, the SNES, the original PlayStation.
Yeah.
When the TV didn't work, you had a system. You'd go around the back. You'd check all the individual cables, or you'd check the SCART. You'd blow the SCART socket to make sure it was clean. You'd take the disc out. But people these days don't know the ancient texts. They didn't know how to do it. And so instead of just walking around the back to check the cables, he didn't know what to do. And so he's like, oh, what do I do now? The connection seems to have gone to the internet. How do I fix this? Daniel Farker.
We might have to bleep all that.
No, I think it's a white European. You can do a white European.
Oh, okay.
Leave it in. Leave it in. This is my best accent. I'm Daniel Farker, the manager of Leeds. I go for a chalk. But anyway, there you go. Some fan, some nutter just got on the pitch and pulled the plugs out. Amazing.
By the way, I'm now currently searching for Bundesliga 2 fixtures and the table itself. Schalke, great run, potentially back to Bundesliga.
Back.
Side note, you know my best friend Joe, right? My buddy Joe, I introduced you to. We
met at Craven Cottage last year.
Yeah. We had a good time. Joe would do stand up. He would like do open mic night. And one of his favorite stand up jokes was telling the story about how he learned originally to do. And it was using
so we're
Nintendo.
Just beeping this whole segment, are we? Is this even usable?
It was super. No, this is totally. I mean, totally. He was using Super Nintendo cartridges and how you had to like blow into them and how you had your own like little routine.
Yes.
And he was saying like the joke was, and it always hit because for our generation, everybody knew like even when you had to like double slide when your Super Nintendo wasn't locking as you put the game in, then you put another game on top of it then to keep it. And it was like the perfect metrics to make it work perfectly. But anyways, Joe's joke. So when you said that and you're like, yeah, and then he had to blow the and I was like, oh yeah, this joke.
This would only work in some comedy clubs now for a certain generation of people. Anyone under 35 has got no idea what that joke is. Everyone over 35, absolutely accurate. Anyway, that was FA Cup chat. Let me ask you about MLS. Specifically, I did want to ask you, again, I'm watching the highlights. I'm trying to get across the season. It's the first few weeks, so it is difficult. But maybe it was the case, and I've just sort of forgotten it. Was there a Harlem Globetrotters Lionel Messi tour last season, or has it ramped up this season? Because it's
No.
another. So they've done the 72,000 seats in
Yeah.
Baltimore this
Yeah.
weekend for the DC game where Lionel
Yeah.
Messi scores the winner. So it's perfect value for money, bang for your buck. Though I do hear a lot of bucks, but that's America. That's sort of proud of it, I guess. What happened here? Is this going to continue? And how many times will it be a kind of Lionel Messi Globetrotters thing?
Well, they're going to do it in Denver. You know that for sure. They're going to take it to Mile High. I think it's dependent upon each team and or ownership and the size of the specific stadium in Major League Soccer. So this isn't what you're doing is you're capitalizing on the fame of Lionel Messi and the fact that Inter Miami and company are coming to town. But you've got this weird kind of difference where like LAFC decided it was more valuable to put 76,000 people across the street at the Coliseum as opposed to I think it's like 27,000 at BMO
Is it literally
Stadium.
across the street? Like really close?
Literally, it's a driveway. It's literally a driveway. Whereas Orlando, they could have gone to the Orange Bowl. They elected to stay at Inter and Co. Stadium. That's the name of their even though it's a big joke about Inter Miami owning Orlando, even though they do own Orlando on the field, but it's named about the stadium. But whatever.
Right. Okay.
So DC United doesn't play at Audi Field. They go to Baltimore. They're using the football facility. When Lionel Messi's coming out to do kind of the Rocky Mountain two-step in Denver, they're not going to play in Commerce City. They're going to play at Mile High Stadium where the Broncos play. So an opportunity to upsell to all of the other fans that maybe aren't interested in the Colorado Rapids, but then maybe if the Colorado Rapids play well, that can be their second, third team, and they could start supporting them. Whereas Real Salt Lake here in Salt Lake City is going to play at America First Field. That's their MLS stadium. They chose not to go to the University of Utah or go down to BYU, where they could have gone into the 80,000s theoretically if they wanted
Dunny?
to.
Why are some saying yes and others not?
Okay, so twofold. Number one, I think there's a branding element. There's a financial commercial opportunity there where you have to recognize that if I put on like a general manager, president, CMO type of headdress on this, skeleton cap, I'm thinking, okay, if we do move it to another stadium, right there, 35 to 45% of my revenue is gone. Because that's going to be shared with the stadium, right? So you're talking about parking, you're talking about food and beverage, you're talking about any of the sales for clothing, jerseys, all of those things. And then so there's going to be an upsell on the tickets, but the upsell on the tickets at 75,000 is significant and probably better favor than maybe if you can only stick 23,000 in. You've got full gate, you've got full parking, full food and beverage, full clothing, everything. So I guess it's just and it's I mean, there's the other part of this is the reaction of ownership to say, who are we in our general market versus who can we be if we have a good performance, and then we can bring in those fans and because here in the States, I think we all that are soccer fans, if you grew up with a parent that's like an obsessed soccer fan, right? So someone like myself, Micah, my middle boy, loves Manchester United and will 100% be a fan of Manchester United. Whereas my older boy, Shia, it's almost like he's pushed against the grain because I've liked him. He's felt like he's got to find somebody else. And then Luca, he just loves everything. So he's just down for whatever. But then if we like, quote unquote, pick a team, they'll obviously be like Real Salt Lake local. So that's their quote unquote second team, not necessarily their first team. So I think the idea is, if you're in Southern California, and say you grew up as a Liga MX Mexican national team fan, if you go to watch, Lionel Messi's in town, I'm going to go watch him play against LAFC. LAFC wins 3-0. All of a sudden you're like, holy moly, they're that good? I'm going to be more open to paying attention to going to an LAFC game. And then, say if you're a Club America fan, like a diehard Club America kid, because your dad was Club America, well, then all of a sudden, now that you have a second team, maybe it's kind of like your home team because you go watch LAFC play versus I've always grew up with this genetic, string theory to anything that Club America does. So it's a weird conversation. It's very nuanced, but it's really about, I think, twofold. Owners understanding that they're footing a certain amount of the bill for Lionel Messi being in Major League Soccer, and at the same time, how then do they make up and or monetize Lionel Messi being in the building? So
Can I ask on that?
about the
Is there
dollars.
controversy to that point you just made there about maybe you might support Real Salt Lake because they're local to you, and of course there's not really the same local rivalries in America because it's so
Yeah.
massive. In like there's no away fan culture in the same way.
Yeah.
Would the home fans? Because I mean, I'm just trying to put because obviously it's culturally different. But if
Yeah.
West Ham were playing and Lionel Messi was coming because he was playing for Man City or whatever, and they were like, "Well, actually, we could play this at Wembley in front of 90,000. It could be
Yeah.
commercially successful for us." People would do their head in and they would go mad and they'd be like, "We can't do this. We have a home ground and that's it." Is there much of that for? I mean, I don't know about DC United fans, but
Yeah.
would there be at some clubs and not at others? Are you getting a bit of
Yeah.
that?
I honestly, I think there is. And I got to be honest, when I first found out that, well, I mean, there's a history. LA Galaxy, LAFC, they played at the Rose Bowl on July 4th, and it
Yes.
was a smashing success. So I get, and again, LAFC is the king of the LA market, but they're still, I think, always trying to evolve and brand and be that differentiator. I mean, Sun Heung-min is a phenomenal player on the field, but don't think for a second that, monetizing the commercial asset of Sun Heung-min, whether you're talking about in Asia or you're talking about just in world football, that he checks virtually every box that's it's not the same category as David Beckham, but it's really close. It's a lot closer than people think. But I mean, also, I think that the leadership groups, the ownership groups also recognize that, the partnership with Apple TV is opening up different eyeballs now that they have F1, now that it's not behind, a double window. It's only if you have Apple TV, you get to watch Major League Soccer whenever you want. All of these are just huge, huge assets. But to your point, it's something what I'm so critical about, and I think I've got to probably think about this more, is Javier Tebas and everything that's happening in Spain as the president of La Liga. He's been trying to bring La Liga games over to the United States for years, and it keeps getting shut down. And all I keep saying is, yeah, great. You're not going to, if you want to bring Barcelona and Real Madrid over here and or one or the other, well, that's at the cost of Girona losing a home game or Villarreal losing a home game. And not to say they would have won anyways or even gotten points, but then how do you make up physically, financially, the cost of all of these season ticket holders and or game day participants that now they don't have the opportunity because you took the game as a showcase to maximize and monetize credit cards in the United States. So, yeah, it's an interesting conversation, one that I'm always up for, because I think both sides could be true of the debate of quote unquote right and or wrong. But I also think from an MLS standpoint, they've been so nimble in their creativity that they have to take advantage of him being in market while he's here, because at some point in the future, Inter Miami is going to have to go in that next stage of life is who are Inter Miami if Lionel Messi isn't wearing the 10 on the field for him.
Yeah, I think if he stays this year, next year, and the year after, and gets to 41, which is kind of the plan, I guess, from what I read, then I do wonder what impact there will be. I mean, I guess everyone will be hoping for longevity, and if 70,000 people go and 10% of that crowd had never been before become soccer fans, then the whole thing is kind of worth it because there's
100%.
there's money and culture and all that to be made from it. But it's fascinating because I guess American sport is just a bit more forgiving in that way because it kind of has to be. This is one of the key examples where European and North American sport, in some ways, in some sports, are just so different because this is just. You've seen it when they try to do the 39th game and the Super League just in England. The reaction is so bad. It's so bad.
But it's also we don't have the same level of tribalism for one sport.
Yeah,
I mean, it's our tribalism is split across the board. Whether you're talking about NFL, Major League Baseball, NASCAR, all that stuff. Like we're as tribal in terms of sports as anybody else, but we just have this broader stroke of availability of you're constantly it's squirrel. But what I also say too, there is a very unique balance between Messi coming to MLS teams and Messi going to play MLS teams in NFL cathedrals. And I feel like, to your point, we've seen a significant pushback of like the hardcore MLS fans. And I know there's a weird joke in there for somebody, but that for those that are like 100% season ticket holders, show up to every single game. If you show up wearing a Messi jersey, people are pissed. Like out here in Salt Lake when Sonny showed up and all of a sudden the Tottenham jerseys and the South Korean jerseys and the LAFC jerseys, and they were sitting in people's season ticket seats, people were then getting pissed at Joanne and Bob, who are the season ticket holders, that sold their tickets like to someone who was buying it to come see that was going to root for another team and was in this section. Like I just literally, it's so funny you bring this up because I just literally had this conversation yesterday. The tickets for Lionel Messi and Inter Miami at Real Salt Lake are like 300 a pop right now, $300 a pop. So it's significant amounts of money.
Yeah.
So it's like
Is that high for America? I know you pay big prices.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Really, really high. Like
Okay.
4 to 5 times ticket value, depending on where you're sitting.
Okay.
But I was literally having this conversation with someone yesterday who said that they were debating because they were trying to figure out the time of the year when Lionel Messi, because the Saturday games in Denver, the Wednesday games in Salt Lake, and then sorry, my son was just calling me, WhatsApping me, and then the Saturday game was in Miami. Max and I are going to call the Salt Lake game, and then we're going to call the game against New England. I think it's the third game at Freedom Park, their new stadium. And everyone's debating, like, is Messi going to play? How worried is he going to be for Argentina? How's his fitness looking? The World Cup's right around the corner. Would you risk him at altitude twice and then still have to fly back and play 3 games in 7 days? So everyone's kind of like, is he going to make it? Is he not going to make it? We just saw the lawsuit settled with Vancouver and Major League Soccer versus a fan that bought tickets back in 23, 24 to see Messi play against Vancouver, and he didn't travel, he didn't play. I think it was only Jordi Alba that went. Suarez, Messi, and Busquets, I don't think traveled. So they put like a class action lawsuit that had to be settled, which then, after being settled, I think every MLS team had to change the verbiage to like scheduled to appear as opposed to like an absolute. But this family was like, well, I got 4 tickets, and 4 tickets at $300 each. That money will effectively pay for 2 of our season tickets. Is it worth us just giving it up knowing that maybe there's a 50-50 chance that he's even going to be there? And then they're on top of that, they're like, the cost of these tickets, we could all fly to Miami as a family, do a whole Miami experience, go to the game, still with that same kind of budget, and maybe have a lifetime experience as opposed to a 1-game lifetime experience. So it's a really, really interesting conversation.
Yeah. Listen, we'll come back to this, I'm sure, because there'll be further big games coming up in the coming weeks and months, and there will be a time, as there was last season, where a game is sort of sold on the concept of Messi, and Messi is a human being who's 38 years of age, and I was one of them recently, and you quite literally can't turn up for every single week at work. Never mind if you've got to run around a bit. Not that he runs around very much. I want to move us on to another topic, and it's the topic we should have done on Friday last week, but sadly I couldn't do it. And that is the Tottenham topic. We've got to do a few minutes on this because this is interesting.
Yeah.
I still sort of think it'll be West Ham, but the more I watch the games, the more I think they're the best of the 4 that are back in this relegation battle in the Premier League. I think that this weekend, West Ham, Man City, they'll probably lose that game and it'll make it a bigger gap again. But then we get down to the final 8, and that's when there's all the winnable games sort of start to come for everybody. And so we'll see where we are. So West Ham still playing catch up. However, I watch West Ham in general and I think, yeah, okay, that's a team that could probably get 4 or 5 wins and maybe pull it off. I look at this Forest team and think, yeah, they're able on a big game, as we saw against Man City and Liverpool, to turn it on and get something. Leeds have got winnable home games. The Sunderland loss last week was interesting. But I'm watching Tottenham against Palace, and I genuinely, my jaw was on the floor. Because even though they have been poor, you can lose. Anyone can lose to anyone. Anyone can lose to Palace. The way they lost that game, the way the whole thing went, was incredible. From Igor Tudor getting this job, and he obviously should not have this job. It's a mad appointment at a mad moment for someone who's never worked in England before to go into a basket case club with a monumental injury list under huge pressure to get results. It's a huge job. I'm quite surprised as we record this, he is still the manager of Spurs. I wonder what happens after Atleti in midweek. If he is still there, depending on what happens, I wonder what happens after the Liverpool game coming up at the weekend, whether he's still the Spurs manager. We will see. You add that to the different formations that he's played in the games he's been in charge. There was 3 at the back against Fulham, and then they changed it. There was 3 at the back against Palace. They changed it, 4 at the back in the second game. He's had Solanke up front. He's tried Colomwani up front. João Palhinha has been in the back three, then he goes back into midfield. Pedro Porro's in a back three. Archie Gray is a wing back, then he's a winger, then he's a full back. He's doing everything but mop the floor at the moment, Tottenham. You add that to the incredible camera work of the crowd around the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in the game against Palace, of fans just in shock. You add that to the general apathy of the team barely winning a home game in 18 months. People like Mickey van der Ven do not seem bothered. The red card was incomprehensible. The lack of effort was incomprehensible in the second half of the game against Palace, I thought, beyond one shot, I think, by Solanke. That was all it. I mean, you bundle that all together.
Richarlison body language?
The body, I mean, I know you tell us about body language a lot, so obviously, tell us about that. But the other bit, just briefly, is a lot of my friends are West Ham fans. Most of us are quite depressing. That's why we're such chums. But I have been probably the most definitive that they ain't going to make it this season because of the way it's looked for 25 weeks. But I tell you what, I have been mentally prepared for relegation and a relegation battle since October. Leeds have been prepared for a relegation battle since May. I think it's fair to say that Forest have been prepared for a relegation battle since October, maybe November. Spurs ain't ready. The fans aren't ready. The club aren't ready. The players don't look ready. This is a whole new world of pressure that no one seems to have got themselves prepared for. And all of this is coming together to make me ask the question, Dunny, is it realistic? Is it going to happen? Are Spurs going to get relegated this season? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I can tell you that that the body language was really telling to me. Matistel, I'm not sure what you're doing with that ball. Pedro Porro, you're showing more fight against the seats for your ego being subbed off than you were on the field. Mickey van de Ven, we're complimenting him on his Virgil van Dijk-esque type of consistency of performance and the way that he defends individually. Again, I recognize that this is a team that has dealt with an unbelievable amount of injuries. And I understand that, again, for me, the body language of an emotional team, when you add an emotional manager, that is the complete opposite of what Thomas Frank was on the sideline, in terms of just how demonstrative he is. It almost feels like Igor Tudor wants it more than sometimes some of these players are physically showing. And again, I can understand if you lose to Arsenal, but the Fulham game and the Palace game, it just becomes that much more complicated. So now you're on the road against Atletico Madrid. Then you're on the road at Liverpool. Then you're home against Atletico Madrid. And I can't see a way for anything out of those three games. And then on top of that, Forest at home, Sunderland away, Brighton at home, Wolves away, Villa away, Leeds at home, Chelsea away, Everton to finish the season. So they need
4 wins and 2 draws from that run, I'd say. That's what everyone needs. 4 wins, 2 draws.
Yeah.
You seeing it?
No. How could you? All right, do they have it? Yeah, I mean, they could. But I'm not seeing it. And like, the banter's not even fun.
Got 3 teams there that need that amount. Like, would you today back, like, West Ham to get 4 and 2? I can see it. I wouldn't necessarily back it. Forest, I can see them getting 3 and 3. Leeds, I could probably see a 3 and 3. I've not got all the games in front of me, but I worked out all the scenarios where West Ham make it this season.
Yeah, so West Ham, Brentford at home, City at home, away against Villa, home against Wolves, Palace away, Everton, away against Brentford, Arsenal. It kills you.
You've got to be really good to win
Arsenal
these games.
Away at Newcastle, and then home against Leeds is what.
I'm just looking. The Arsenal game, I would say on current form, I'd be like, no chance. The rest of it, I think there's a chance.
Yeah, I mean, it's body language, right? I mean, Forest. I mean, Leeds is Leeds.
The Leeds game against Sunderland, they were appalling.
But here's the other thing: like, Wolves are starting to show heart. I think they have 1 loss in their last 5, 2 of those being wins.
Tough game.
Burnley should have. I mean, they should have beat Brentford 2 weekends ago. Shia was there. He said it was an unbelievable game.
But he couldn't see the handball because of Ashley Barnes' big fat belly, so he's got no idea.
No, incorrect. It was the angle, not the fat belly. Not the fat belly. By the way, he went to Bolton Wickham. It was 3-2 win, Bolton at the very end.
Nice.
And it was fun because everyone at Bolton. Yes.
Tough Sheen Stadium.
Yeah. He
Sorry,
stayed there.
Tim.
Yeah, no. You just say if the result doesn't go your way, it was just tough sheet.
It's tough
He
sheet, baby.
played away at Bolton. Joke within a joke. But no, he actually stayed there for 10 days at the hotel
Right.
at the stadium at Bolton. So
Oh, nice.
training there, yeah, he had a great experience. And he said the Bolton boys were great. He said the coaching staff was like he was like it was so Dunsethery you would have loved it. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, every time they bring in an away team, they put him in the boot room to make him change in the boot room, just as as a sign of like, yeah, that's your value. You're over
Yes.
there.
Nice.
So it was, yeah, all those are different. But
love
anyways, Wolves have life. Burnley's got some life. I mean, there's going to be a
They're
punch.
not, they're not going to make it, though. They're going to be
No,
tough games. They're not gonna make it.
no. Showing life is different.
Yeah.
Because then you're playing for ego, you're playing for pride, you're playing for the badge, you're playing for the city, you're playing for the fans, and potentially you're playing for another contract. Whether that means in the championship or you're playing for a contract in the Premier League. You know, Shaqiri. Huh. Okay. See you, Stoke. Off to Liverpool. This sucks. You know, Gini Wijnaldum, when he went down, what, twice? No, once. Once with Newcastle,
Yeah.
ends up at Liverpool. So, yeah, Burnley and Wolves become outliers in this conversation because they're not rollover games like they were earlier. All of a sudden, they're starting to figure it out. It's just too little, too late.
Yeah. The only other bit is Igor Tudor. Let me ask a quick follow-up on him, and then we'll wrap it for today. It's a weird appointment. There's lots of stories that Paratici wanted to bring him in at the start of the season and not Thomas Frank. I honestly don't know how true any of that is, but that I'm sure his name came up as a potential hire, as he may have left Juve at that point, Tudor. But to bring him in now, like he has obviously come in and he's going to be like, right, do what I tell you and we'll be all right. And a few of these guys are clearly not having him. That's evident. We're recording before Atleti and recording before Liverpool. Do you think he's in charge for the Liverpool game? And there is a rumour I have heard from people who would know that if they do get rid of Igor Tudor, the answer is going to be Harry Redknapp. Like that is what I've heard from people who would know. He has been, let's say, sounded out.
Yeah.
There's been a proper conversation with the people who speak to the people. I wouldn't be surprised if the people is quite literally Harry's wife. I wouldn't be surprised. The Tudor thing has not gone well. If they go on to lose 2 more and they lose 5 in a row and it's all vibes from now, you ain't going to get a new tactical system in between now and the end. It's going to be vibes that get them there.
Yeah.
Harry only brings vibes. Like, how realistic do you think that Igor Tudor doesn't make it past Atleti or Liverpool? And how realistic and how smart would it be for them to get 73-year-old Harry Redknapp on the phone?
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, now that Edu is effectively had his cut off, sorry, Tim, at Forest, and Vinay is struggling. Metaphorically.
Yes.
And now Vinay has struggled so significantly at Spurs. How do we look back at what Arsenal's timeline was and now the position that they find themselves in this season, heading into potentially 4 trophies? A subplot for another day. Different times, but Wilfred Nancy, his time at Celtic. Eric Ramsey, his time at West Brom. We've seen 4 managers come and go, 3 come and go, 1 stay at Nottingham Forest. I come down to one simple thing. Daniel Levy, maybe it all wasn't his fault. The Enoch, Joe Lewis family board installation of different personalities. Still don't understand Paratici. Langa coming over from Aston Villa. Who is ultimately responsible? Who's making the decisions? And then finally, if you are convinced that the players have lost faith in Igor Tudor and his coaching staff, and it'll be insanely evident. All you got to do is walk down to the field and watch the interactions over the course of a training session, because the body language suggests to me that these guys aren't buying what he's selling. If you feel like that is 100% the case, you eat a bag of sorry, Tim, and you absorb whatever losses you're going to take for the cost of him coming in for this short-term appointment, and you get somebody in that has a feel-good factor, to your point. And if that is indeed Harry Redknapp, then that's fine. Play the hits. Bring in Ledley, bring in Ryan Mason, whoever you got to do. Just get the guys in to help this group understand the importance. Walk them down the hallway. Do the big Ange Postecoglou. Mate, you see these pictures? They're all black and white. They haven't lifted a trophy since then. By the way, I love struggling Spurs right now because all the memes come out. one of the best memes was on Instagram, and I'm just winding up the Tottenham Lunacy group, is when they went back and they're doing their winners celebration. They've won Europa League. They beat Manchester United, and Big Ange Postecoglou says something to the effect of, "You think season 2 was great? Just wait until season 3." And I don't think it was going the way he was trying to sell, but currently, if they get relegated, holy crap. But they're in trouble. They need something.
What about Ange? Last bit on this. What about Ange? People think it's mad, and I don't know why you would say yes. But A, it's evident now they shouldn't have got rid of him. They shouldn't have done, because they would not have. They could only have done as bad as this, and they would not have done as bad. So he shouldn't have gone. And it's the same as the Moyes conversation. We can say his time would run out until you're blue in the face. But when you then see what comes next, they obviously shouldn't have got rid of him. And they shouldn't have got rid of Postecoglou because it wouldn't have been as bad. But what if the bat signal goes up? What if the red phone beeps?
Who would you want? Him or Daichi?
At Spurs, Postecoglou. If it were me, I'd bring Postecoglou back today, because some of the players did love him. He will bring a feel-good factor to the club. A significant part of the reason they finished 17th last season was the Europa League run. I mean, it wouldn't have been a great deal better, but he did toss off the league because last year, by the way, the points that Spurs, West Ham, Forest and Leeds have all got would have kept you up. I think the 18th team got 25 or 24 last season, Ipswich Town. So you're up from last season anyway, so it's more competitive now. And I think Postecoglou right now would lift everybody. And Igor Tudor is just not the man. He's not the guy. That's an insane hire. So I
just remember last year when when Big Ange was constantly asked about prioritizing Europa League, and he kept saying, "Don't question my integrity, mate."
Yes.
And then he goes on the Gary Neville show and basically says, "Yeah, man, I knew in January I had to prioritize the
integrity." Me?
Yeah. No. Hey, common sense.
You should question my integrity, mate.
What about Allardyce? I mean, there's an Italian manager named Big Sam Allardyce.
See, I do think a lot of these guys, as much as I love Big Sam and Harry Redknapp and all this lot, I do think stay on the beach. I don't think Harry should do it in 73.
Put him to pasture.
Postecoglou could be the new... Someone calls him every year in April.
But here's the problem with this. If Postecoglou goes back to Spurs, that means the idea of Mauricio Pochettino is never in play. So you got to be really...
Mate. You can't think about your second
wedding.
Talk
about playing the Heats.
You can't think about your second wedding while your first wedding's still going on. Like is
that his first one?
Postecoglou is not gonna Pochettino, whatever happens, if Spurs win the championship, he ain't going there. And first priority 100%. Right now is stop the boat sinking. And I'd give it to Big Ange. We'll find out together. As long as it's not West Ham, I don't give a shit. That's Brian Dunseth over there.
Tim.
I'm sorry, Tim. I'm Tom Rennie. Tim Horsey produced the programme. We'll see you next week.